And this is the good news of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is Job in the first reading, not practicing an attitude of gratitude. For sure. Okay, so according to near the end of today's gospel reading, Jesus got up early in the morning while it was still very dark and went to a deserted place. This is not about Jesus escaping or getting away. It's about prayer, his and ours. It's not about what is happening around us or to us, but what's happening within us. Perhaps the deserted place is the place inside him where Jesus could avoid his thoughts and the distractions that were all around him. That empty place where we know God's presence. And that place is prayer. Many of us struggle with prayer. I know I always did. I once thought that some people do and some people pray. And I was a doer. Or somehow, when it came to praying, I just did it wrong. But I've since come to believe that prayer is not primarily saying words or even thinking thoughts. It is rather a stance or a perspective. It's more about listening than speaking. It's living in the presence, living in the awareness of the presence of the divine in us and in everything around us. We cannot do anything to attain the presence of God because we're always in the presence of God. What's absent is our awareness. And the awareness is drowned out by the chaos of the world around us and the constant intrusive thoughts that clutter our minds. Here at Good Shepherd, we're always speaking about silence and meditation and centering as methods, either types of prayer or practices that help us get to that awareness. But a lot of people tell me, that's not for me. I can't do that. I don't do that. It can be uncomfortable, at least at first. But the only purpose of these practices is to get out of our mind and into our heart and to let the thoughts that we have, let go of those thoughts that are reliving yesterday and agonizing about what comes next. And for some of us, if we keep at it, it's sitting quietly. That works best. But for others, it can be kneading bread, dancing, walking quietly with no purpose, practicing yoga, painting, gardening, knitting, the rosary, anything that keeps us from being distracted by this monkey mind that we have. I have a young nephew who struggles with anxiety. He often gets very anxious and agitated, especially when our extended family, who are allowed, all gather together for a Sunday dinner. And we can see it happening. We notice him getting anxious and upset, and he's about to lose it. And if we ask him, play the piano for us, a request he would never, ever refuse, no matter how crazy he's gotten. And even though he'll start out with his timing rushed, within seconds, all his angst melts away and he's absorbed into the music. He's just mindful of that piano and he's totally present, and all those thoughts no longer have a place. Getting ourselves out of that monkey mind for a while each day, a little bit each day, trains us to be present to the moment. We have to constantly and continually nourish that awareness by pulling ourselves out of the hurried world we live in into the presence of this moment, right now. So we're able to slow our pace and stay longer and longer in that place of grace and presence. Our egos are always going to pull us back, always back into our minds, always back into the world, and we need to live there too. That's part of what the world is. But just knowing that there is that place, that presence that's always available, I think it teaches us not to be so attached to that egoic world. And being present helps us to hear that voice with no words inside us that helps us know we are beloved. And that knowing helps us to see the whole world around us as soaked with the divine. Everything is beloved. Everything is part of the presence of God. And everything is holy. And when we understand that, when we sense that, it's kind of an inner knowing. It's not something you can read about. It's something you have to feel inside you. When that happens, then watching a sunset, washing the dishes, ironing and folding the laundry, when done mindfully with eyes that sees God's presence in it, that is prayer. That is what prayer is. Teilhard de Chardin said, "Nothing below is profane for those who know how to see. Everything is sacred." And that's what St. Paul meant when he said, "Make your life a prayer." And when we see that way, we tend to treat everything and everyone with love and compassion. It's just natural. All religion is meant to teach us how to see and be present to reality. I think it was some Dominican priest who said, prayer is just a long, loving look at the real. All spiritual disciplines have one purpose: to get rid of the illusions so we can be present and awaken our consciousness. That's why the Buddha and Jesus both say, be awake. All four gospel writers tell us that Jesus said, stay watchful, stay awake with me. And the word Buddha means I am awake, or the awakened one in Sanskrit. So last week in his homily, Drew spoke of Mary and Martha, and how Mary was living in the present moment and wasn't distracted by other things. Imagine if Martha were going about her preparations for the meal, present to each thing she was doing, intentionally as prayer. I don't think she would have been complaining. And perhaps then she too would have been undistracted and would have found the better part.